We're here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary man.
Marc Bolan was charismatic.
I'm casual today, actually.
Great singer and poet.
Her brother, the jukebox king, with his little mouthy sting.
You're windy, you're wild, you got the blues on your shoes and your stockings.
A person that knew what fans wanted. He was a people person for fans. He never let them down.
Marc Bolan took them all by storm, balanced on the biggest wave.
And the condition was that we didn't bother Mark. And we're going, we won't.
Me and Mark.
This is one Marc Bolan did work. He cut the arms off it.
Summerstown, southwest London, on the Wandsworth Merton frontier, on the banks of the River Wandle. Welcome to a great day when we announce to the world that a very special person who still touches people's lives around the globe today has a connection to our neighbourhood. This is the historic place that Mark came and went, but his parents lived on here for almost 10 years. And then moved up the road to the Ashburton estate on Putney Heath. And it's where in 1967 people phoned in response to an advert if they wanted to be part of Tyrannosaurus Rex. This spot here, right now on Summerstown, is the birthplace of one of the biggest sounds of the early 70s and a truckload of monster smash hits which still sound so good today. So the pubs where he busked, 2 of them down there, 2 of them behind us, the bedrooms he jammed in, the streets he walked on, the spirit of Marc Bolan is very much still here and I think felt by everybody who knows about it. I'm so grateful to local people who grew up here and whether they came on my walks or communicated with me through social media or over the phone, have kindly shared their precious memories of those early 60s years. Memories of Mark queuing up at the bakery, still here across the Summerstown roundabout to buy buns. Of Mark sharing the gear from his modelling assignments with his local mates. Of shaking things up at the youth club at Earlsfield Primary School. Of coming round for tea. Now I mentioned pubs. And a very big thank you to Alex and Chris and everyone here at By the Horns for hosting us today. Listen up, they are great champions of local history. And if you haven't tasted it, get stuck into the Cosmic Warrior, which they introduced about 7 or 8 years ago and launching today, everybody. Solid, gold, easy action. Make sure you taste that. Another beer, a tribute to Marc Bolan. There were 4 boozers within short walking distance of this prefab, including the magnificent corner pin across the road. A little further on, behind us, was the Prince of Wales on Garrett Lane. The likes of Robert Sadler, pedestrian, pioneer, and Nosha Powell, king of the stuntmen, sold beer on that site from 1852. Since 2012, it's been the home of Tesco Express, and we are very grateful to them for agreeing to put up the plaque. It's not going to be difficult when we see it now to imagine Mark busking beneath it as he once did. So we're going to hear about Mark, listen to some of his songs, then after that we're all going to move along the pavement, this little pavement behind us, very carefully to the space opposite Tesco. On the other side of the road, Andy will be unveiling the plaque.
I saw Marc Bolan live in the Capitol Cinema Cardiff, 1971.
My favourite place was Birmingham Town Hall. I had a ticket to sit in the balcony.
We're lucky enough to go to the Wembley concert, 18th of March 1972. It was filmed for Born to Boogie.
I'm very lucky, I wish I had.
One person person that we would all have liked to have seen here today, Marc Bolan's brother, Harry. And I just want to read what he said to me. Hi, Geoff. I'm afraid that on the unveiling day we are tied up with commitments in Portsmouth. Family matters. If we are free at a later date, we will gladly come up to London. I will write again and maybe meet and go for 1 or 2 pints with you. Once again, sorry. Hope everything goes well. Best wishes, Harry. Thank you, Harry Feld, who lived here in the prefab. And listen, everybody, thank you, Marc Bolan fans, for coming together so magnificently when we launched our appeal back in March, raising funds to pay for this plaque. We hope that fans from all over the world will in time come to see it, come to this area and reflect on Marc's formative teenage years. I really hope it's added a little bit extra to his story and your understanding of him. Because of this plaque, this area will be forever associated with Marc Bolan. The romance of his journey from humble beginnings to iconic superstardom. People will think about the legacy of his beautiful music every time they walk into that Tesco Express. And this will be a better place to live for what you have done. So thank you, Marc Bolan fans. As I said, we've got a few speakers here today and 1 or 2 performances, and we're very glad that Georgie Temple has kindly agreed to start today's event by singing one of your favourite songs. Thank you, Georgie.
Well, you're windy and wild, you got the drew on your shoes and your stockings. You're windy and wild, oh yeah. You're windy and wild, you got the blues on your shoes and your stockings. You're windy and wild, oh yeah. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on. Oh yeah, 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 get it on, bang a gong, get it on. 'Cause you're dirty and sweet, you got the teeth on the teeth in your stockings. You're dirty, sweet, and you're my girl. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on. Thank you very much.
Would have been possible without you, the fans. Like the AFC Wimbledon story, this is all about the fans. So we're really thrilled that one person who's been a lifelong fan of Marc Bolan is going to come and say a few words now. So Fran.
On the last tour in March '77, my sister and I hitchhiked, and our friend hitchhiked to the gig. It took us all day down all these country roads and nothing was coming. We ended up walking most of the way. We were in a sorry state, and then eventually some of the stage crew came along in a van and they saw my large Dandy in the Underworld sticker on the back of my silver bomber jacket and gave us a lift. And at the gig, a member of Mark's staff got wind of this and said, so how are you going to get back home then? We went, same way. He went, oh, no, you're not. Let me see what I can do. So he got us a lift on the tour coach. And the condition was that we didn't bother Mark. And we're going, we won't. And we weren't to tell anybody else beforehand. So we had to keep it a secret to some of our friends, fellow fans, which we didn't feel good about, but we had to. So we were told to slip out before the encore and be on the coach before everyone else was. Mark was one of the last people to get on. We, the three of us, my sister Christine and another Christine, sat right behind the driver in the front seat on the right, kind of opposite the door, and so we've just been very quiet, totally behaving ourselves, trying to look as invisible as possible, basically. Not easy three young punks. Mark got on, clocked us, smiled to himself. He didn't say anything, just carried on to the back of the bus. The very last people to get on were the damned, who sat at the front in the seats across the aisles from us. They were in very high spirits and were trying to get our attention. We were going, we've got to be quiet. Shh, we can't talk to him, we've got to be quiet. But they weren't having that, so they started throwing bread rolls at us and opening their cans of Coke. Well, Coke, that's quite disciplined of them, isn't it? It was playful, they weren't being horrid. The journey progressed. Right, all out, come on, we're going in. It wasn't a service station, it was one of those tiny cafes somewhere in, I don't know, Suffolk, somewhere really quiet. Just a transport sort of cafe, very quiet. And we were going, we just sat there because we had no money at all. And somebody said, are you having anything to eat? And we're going, we sort of ordered a cup of tea between three of us. And anyway, so a whisper, one of the roadies went off and said, you're having egg and chips. We're going, we can't. We went, yes, you can. And Mark waved at us. And we went, oh my God, he's paid for us to have egg and chips. Oh my God. So we were totally impressed with that. They even dropped us off 5 minutes from where we lived. I mean, that is because we live near the Angel in Islington. You know, it's I think we were going that way anyway. I don't think we're being that good. And the last time we met Mark was the day before he died. Outside his office, spent a lot of time outside that office on New Bond Street. I even got a job in Dulcis opposite on stage, just so I could spend all my breaks looking up at the office in case he turned up. And my sister had both index fingers bandaged up. Mark knew who we were, and he said, what have you been doing, Chris, picking your nose? So that was the last thing he said to us, which is nice. I don't know if it's time for a very quick poem from Warlock of Love. Is there a quick one? Daughters of love, unite, encircle our woody globe, and blow at the smouldering hearts of our youth as if it were Earth's birthday. And with the coming of the sweet breath, the seeds in the garden of all hearts will flower immense. And such flames licking and long will be sighted upon our lands, that it will seem to the highborn that the earth has hatched anew. For golden would be the flame, and gold is the colour of the maturity of man. Thank you.
Right, everybody, listen, John, coming up now, also a big fan of Mark, but he's also very much loves Andy Ellison. And he was thrilled to hear that he's coming today. He never forgets Hammersmith Odeon, 1975, when Jet were on the Hunter Ronson bill. Now, John is also a poet. He's absorbed himself in Mark's story, and he's produced an original piece of work, which he's going to read now.
Okay, this is a fairly ordinary poem about an extraordinary person. Marc Bolan, The Making of a Star. Stoke Newington to Summerstown seemed like a backward leap to a disenchanted teenager who hankered grand design. Yet the young Feld took it in his stride. He'd not be losing sleep. At 27 Summerstown, the Bolan residence, that frontman Andy Ellison came knocking on the door. Of great things fighting to emerge, further evidence. Production man Visconti, he knew stardom from a distance. 2 minutes in a room with Mark, his aura plain to see. Confronted by the real thing, no inkling of contrivance. John's Children, second on the bill, quite blew the Who away. In Germany, outrageous antics upstaged Townsend's men. The acrobatic Ellison in glorious disarray. But Ravi Shankar's strange sitar had more than made its mark. A transfixed Bolan suddenly had seen the new direction, with Peregrine Took and certain others quickly to embark. Just blokes who'd never played as one. They'd not a single song. The Covent Garden debut of his new band Tyran Rex. But the pipe smoker and the one with ulcers didn't last too long. John Peel threw his weight behind the duo's quirky sound. He championed their folk-based stance, their die-hard self-belief. Yet a US tour proved difficult and they were homeward bound. 4 albums on, the pair had gained a sturdy following, but Steve became distracted by Pink Fairies in his sights. Then Visconti's Biro brought about a band name shortening. T-Rex, once hatched, meant Mark was needing new musicians quick. Ring Wimbledon 0697, his urgent advert read. Came Fifield, Curry and Mickey Finn. Prompt action did the trick. With glitter dabbed on either cheek, he'd fired the starting gun. Inadvertently, perhaps, glam rock was on the running track. Bowie, Eno, The Sweet and others had a race to run. Marc Bolan took them all by storm, balanced on the biggest wave. Summerstown boy could do no wrong. The world was in his hands, charging irreversibly to the pinnacle he craved. Came Hot Love, Jeepster, Metal Guru to passionate acclaim. T-Rex weren't old or grey and couldn't whistle. They failed his test. Whispering Bob did not approve. No invite ever came. Not since early Beatles days had hysteria prevailed. Screaming, fainting, swooning schoolgirls, mayhem ruled the roost. The hemmed-in band's post-gig escapes were worryingly curtailed. Massive albums, constant airplay, from strength to greater strength. Embracing they the teenage dream, Bolan had them mesmerised. The kids just couldn't get enough. He monopolised their wavelength. But when 74's zinc alloy heralded new direction, Mark's glittering career had hit its highest watermark. He'd forged glam rock, glam's course was run, his art earned great affection. Then, 16th September 77, Berkeley Square, South Kensington, Fulham, Putney Bridge, Lower Richmond Road, Queen's Ride, the railway bridge.
Thank you very much, John.
In many ways, I think Mark would have gone on to be a very successful chat show host, because on London Weekend Television, he stood in as a chat show host, and he was absolutely charming, and, you know, everybody, the people he interviewed loved him, the questions he asked were, you know, sort of fabulous.
The Marc Bolan story, 20th Century Boy, is the ultimate Bolan read. And barely a days go by when I don't consult it. And when I saw that on one of the first names in the acknowledgements was somebody who'd been in touch with me, I knew that we had a great man on board this project. Without his guidance, his wisdom, support, connections, knowledge of Marc Bolan and history of his music, we could not have put this together. And here he is, everybody, Mr. Martin Barden.
Thank you all for coming here today, first and foremost. It's a great honour for me to be here, to welcome you to this occasion and to be a part of such an important event for us all and indeed for the legacy of Mark. There's quite a few people I'd like to thank, but I'm going to be as quick as I can. So thank you particularly to those who have contributed through the crowdfunding appeal and who have spread the word for today. Thank you to Jack Hardman, who I understand was the originator of this idea. Thank you, Jack. And particularly to Geoff, Mr. Summerstown Simmons, without whom this would not have happened. Yeah, well done, Geoff. So we're here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary man whose vital teenage years were spent here in Summerstown on pretty much this exact spot where the prefab stood. And we know Mark as this dynamic troubadour, this Technicolor superstar. But of course, it all came from somewhere. It came from the streets of Stoke Newington, and it came from Summerstown too. He wasn't born fully formed as Marc Bolan. He was, of course, born Mark Feld, but it was here in Summerstown that he really undertook that alchemy to make himself into the superstar that we still celebrate today. And I think one of the really useful, if that's the right word, perspective opportunities I've had in being involved in this and working with Geoff is to think again about his time in Summerstown and to join the dots and to understand really what did happen here in Southwest 17. Now, a lot of the fans here today who I would absolutely like to acknowledge will know the song Over the Flats, which Mark recorded only as a demo. It wasn't released in his lifetime. But in Over the Flats, he did rather bemoan the move to Summerstown, and it wasn't looking great for him at that time. But actually, when you listen to it again, and listen to it perhaps with slightly different ears, as well as saying, I have no reputation, everything's gone a bit north for me, he also says, he sings, I've got fire in my shoes. And it was the fire in his shoes that really informed his direction of travel from the time they landed here in Summerstown. And he used his creativity and he used his optimism to make sure that he could realise his destiny. Because it was here, right here in Summerstown, that Mark Feld became Marc Bolan, that the ace-face king of the mods of 3 Streets in Hackney became a poet and a songwriter and a musician and a performer. And if you'll excuse me, he was probably reborn to boogie right here in Summerstown. And one of the things that really informs that whole transformation of Mark is his family. And we've heard from Harry, Mark's older brother, and we should also pay tribute to his strong parents, to Phyllis, his mother, who worked just up the road in the post office, and to his father, Simeon, who gave him the space, who gave the opportunity to Mark to become the person that he was destined to be. Mum and Dad may have been out at work, but Mark was also working. He was here in the prefab, and he was writing songs, and he was writing poems, and he was learning those distinctive guitar chops that we still recognise so readily today. All of that happened here in Summerstown at number 27. And what Mark particularly did was he read. He was self-educating. He decided to immerse himself in romantic poetry, and he read Wordsworth, and he read Keats, and he read Shelley, and he read Byron, and he particularly read Arthur Rimbaud, The Restless Soul. Did you like the pronunciation there? The Restless Soul, the surrealistic poet from France who left school early, who started writing as a child, and who developed this new persona. Now that sounds a little bit familiar when we're talking about the transformation to Marc Bolan. And it was the Tooting Granada where Mark would go, just up the street here, down by the station, the tube station. If you've not been to the Tooting Granada, I recommend it. It's a beautiful palace. It's built in the Art Deco style, but it also has interiors in a sort of neo-Gothic, romantic style. And Mark would have seen bands like the Ronettes and the Stones and Marty Wilde and Little Richard and Sam Cooke at the Tooting Granada. And he will have looked up at the stage and he will have said, yes, that's me. I can do that, and I am going to do that. I am going to become Marc Bolan, because Mark was always a performer. Whether he was in his bedroom here, whether he was out on the street outside the pub, what he needed to do was to find a stage big enough to straddle the world, if you like, to become that person, and that's exactly what he did. He hustled his way to his success. We call it networking now, but it was called hustling back in the day. He formed Tyrannosaurus Rex from this prefab. He met Andy Ellison, who's going to follow me in just a moment, who's standing up there at the back, in this prefab. he advertised for the band members. He wrote to John Peel, and he met his future wife June, all here at the prefab. He developed everything that he needed to put in place to become the person that he knew that he would be. And within 5 years of leaving Summerstown for the last time, he was one of the biggest stars in the world. He was topping the charts around the world. He was playing the biggest stages in the world, redefining what it means to be a musician and a songwriter and a performer and a style guru. He still informs style and contemporary fashion from the catwalk to the high street. All the great couturiers reference Mark's style.
Byrne was born when he appeared on Top of the Pops doing Hot Love, when he had the glitter underneath his eyes, on his cheeks.
We should always remember that it was Mark's groundwork here in Summerstown that led him to use his imagination, his creativity, and to create that space for artistic freedom from which he created that superstar that we know today. And I'd like you all to join me really today to raise a glass to the boy from 27 Summerstown, the superstar Marc Bolan, and keep a little Mark in your hearts. It's my absolute pleasure and honour to welcome to the stage Andy Ellison. They always say, do not introduce a man who needs no introduction. So I shouldn't say much about Andy other than I've known him for a long time. He's an absolute top bloke. He's walking towards us now with his guitar, and he's going to lay down a couple of tracks for us. So give it up for Andy Ellison.
Blimey, it's 54 years ago since I walked down into Mark's prefab, which was just over there, whereabouts the kitchen was, where I had some wonderful mushrooms on toast, which he made for me. And then we went into the living room, which was just, it's just where you were. Anyway, this is one of his great songs. It's called Sarah Crazy Child. Sarah Crazy Child is devouring all the street with her pastel tortured dress and a seductive on no beat. Her skin is white like the olive and her body's bittersweet. Still she's only just 13 and she's forgotten how to dream. Her brother, the jukebox king, with his venom mouthy sting and his knowledge twisted hair and his 1920s stare. He lived beneath the roadway in a Minotaurus lair. In summer he's a young boy, but in winter he's a bear. Broken, dusty mother, her face melted just like wax. Her once gazelle-like features bloodied by the Ajax. Bone placed a postcard of the twosome of their ones. Soullessly they submitted to the guillotine of their home. Said his name was Paradise. In the morning with the sun, he pulled an automatic gun. He blew my soul, he blew my brain. He said I could not do the same. Hippy, Gumbo, he no good. Chop him up for firewood. Hippy, Gumbo, he no good. him up for firewood. Hippy, Gumbo, he no good. Chop him up and we'll burn the wood.
What a moment! Andy Ellison back here at the prefab on the spot where he came in 1967. Listen everyone, now is the moment. We are going to move very carefully down the pavement towards Tesco. We're going to very quickly unveil the plaque. There'll be a bit of a countdown.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Give it up for Marc Bolan!
I've been talking to Rolan about today, and he was very excited and very honoured to know that we were here, gathered to put up the plaque and re-establish Mark Feld, Marc Bolan's presence here in Summerstown. And he sent me a few words, which I'm going to read to you now, all the way from Los Angeles, California. So this is from Rolan. I'm not going to try to put on a Southern Californian accent, you'll be glad to know. So, when a person is destined for something, there are many things in their path which affect their future. You don't realise how much hearing a song on the radio for the first time will affect the life ahead of you. When it comes to artists, there are many unknown factors which give the ability to create and imagine the world outside. He's thinking about Summerstown, the prefab, the world outside. Being raised in the United States, sometimes there is a notion that all British bands come from central London, but that's not true at all. Everyone dreams of making it to the big city, but the first seed was planted somewhere. The bedroom jam sessions, playing the local pubs, and the criticism from friends and family helped to build the backbone of our artists. As we know, my father, that's not my father, Roland's father knew what he wanted to achieve. He was not alone during this journey to become the star he dreamt to be. I have learned so much about my family and my father's legacy over the years through events similar to today's. It is really special to see how much he's appreciated and that many years after his passing, he is still being honoured. We do not know what inspires people, but there are places that lay the foundations, and Summerstown was one of those places that laid the foundations for my father. I am sending you all my love from Los Angeles, and I'd like you all, as always, to keep a little Mark in your hearts.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack Hardman. I'm a local musician here in Summerstown, and I have been part of the Blue Plaque ceremony and part of the organising of the event. So when we first started this whole escapade, I got in touch with Geoff Simmons, a local historian, and I knew a bit about Marc Bolan's history with the area and felt that he should have some sort of sign to acknowledge his time here, because I think musician that famous would really inspire the local people. And I've got the wheels in motion with Tesco's and trying to get the local community involved. And it's been fantastic. People have been so supportive. Tesco's have really helped us turn a very small idea into a big event like this. And we've got music, we've got hundreds of people, and everyone's been great. People that you Mark personally, people that love his music, and I'm just very grateful and proud of the local area to see something so positive come about.
It's been a great day, it really has. I mean, just being here on the spot where they lived, you know, where that prefab was, that marquee behind me. Here, you know, that was the actual. I still can't get my head around that we've, you know, we're here and to see Andy Ellison kind of stepping across there and kind of the whole kind of juxtaposition of him kind of reflecting about him coming here 54 years ago, you know, as a young guy coming here and you know, he's probably tasked with kind of chatting up Marc Bolan and persuading him to join his band, and he did, and you know, the rest is history, really. Unbelievable. Honestly, it really is just spine-tingling stuff. And I was looking around me when you know, Andy was playing, and there were a good few people who really kind of got it, you know, they really were genuinely moved by the whole thing and the craziness of it and the beauty of it, and it's a special moment. It's not gonna, you know, things like that don't happen too often.
And finally, a plaque dedicated to T-Rex frontman Marc Bolan has been unveiled today in part of Tooting. It's on the Tesco in Summerstown and pays tribute to the musician and poet who lived there in the 60s. Geoff Simmons spearheaded the campaign. He tells us about the atmosphere there today.
Such a buzz right from the word go today, just having all these Marc Bolan fans.
I love it. I've never been on a news bulletin.